Hey everybody, welcome back to a Sunday video. We're starting a little bit late today, but we are on the chart. So let's take a look at some trade setups for the week ahead. So I wanted to start where we usually do, which is the dollar, which last week and going into this week, we've been seeing an incredibly strong rally from the US dollar yet again. It seems like price basically came down and did a very rough cut, ugly version of a double bottom. You can see price came down once and then retested those lows with wicks on the bottom and launched from there. This is a really strong dollar move. And with that said, we're basically looking for this overall longer term trend to continue until further notice. So there may be some buy side opportunities when looking at USD crosses. So if we show this on the daily chart, you can see just on the daily higher time frames, the trend is still in full swing here. You can actually see, look at this little, the 20 period moving average almost flipped to the negative, but it turned around very quickly just as we found major buying support, which you can actually see the last time this happened, just out of curiosity, you can see that almost happened near strong rally. And we continued on to the north side. So I'm expecting the dollar here just to continue to move higher and looking like it's probably headed back to the previous high around that 109 mark. And so now let's go take a look at some individual crosses with the US dollar involved. For example, we'll start at Euro USD. So here's the Euro on the daily time frame. And if we start dropping it down, you can see obviously pretty much inverted to the DXY or the US dollar. The Euro dollar is down and we're expecting a trend continuation here until further notice. In fact, specifically, one spot that we made a major breakthrough here last week on was right around the 1.015. You can see what was support here actually came into very strong seller control here once we dropped with this big red candle. So for me, if price does decide to pull back here this week, that could be a level of interest. Now, depending on how tight you are with your pullbacks, let's go ahead and mark this also as supply here. We could make an argument for this whole sort of zone acting as a potential area of value to potentially get some nice supply sells. So for example, we could call this just our supply zone on the 4-hour chart. Okay, so looking at this, the supply zone that we just marked, how would we actually play that? Well, depending on how close or time frame you're executing on, maybe you draw in on the 1-hour chart some fibs, right? So you could draw fibs here from the swing high to the swing low. And all fibs do, if you're new to them, basically it's just going to draw a couple different zones, the 61.8, the 50%, and 38.2. These offer some potential support and resistance zones to consider for possible entries. Now, what I like a lot here is that this lines up in the 50% zone, so this actually could be a nice potential first attempt. Now, if you guys watch me for a while, then you will know that my common approach to taking positions is in pieces. So let's say that I have a bearish bias in the Euro USD and I'm looking at a short at the 50% retracement. If that happens, I'm not saying like, oh, this is an all or nothing bet. Like, I'm gonna mess around and add a huge position size. That's not what I'm gonna do at all. What I'm gonna do instead is, if price comes up here and we find an entry point, great, I'll take the trade. And if it works out, cool, that's awesome. But if it doesn't work out and this thing breaks higher, it doesn't mean that, the euro dollar is just going to go a million miles north from here. It just might mean that my timing may have been off and I'm willing to potentially try again. So we've also marked up this zone, which is a bit higher time frame, but look at this 1.015 level. At this point, I think you also have a potential that this zone could be where sellers really come in strong. So I'm thinking sellers could get strong either in this area or in this area. I'm basically spreading my bets into two different specific entry points and playing both scenarios. So I might never get this opportunity to take trade number 2, but I'll still take both if I need to, with small stops and small risk on each one individually. So in this case, again, I've got this zone. You might say, well, that doesn't line up with 61.8. Let's look a bit higher time frame, and we might see that this lines up nicely with something else. And there it is. The 38.2% retracement is right here on the higher time frames. So for the 4-hour chart traders, we'll get rid of the day trading idea or the shorter term for a second and talk about this supply zone on the 4-hour chart. Not bad at all if you consider, okay, swing high there, swing low potentially. If we do swing back the other direction, that 38.2% lines up beautifully with our level of resistance, and that could offer some good risk reward with stops. Depending on how tight of a swing trader you are, you could get tighter with it, or you could go looser. And just, again, this is going to depend on your style, because if you're someone who's like, I don't mind holding on to a trade for a week and a half, that might be this trade, right? Where you are risking, if this thing were to go in your favor, 50, 55 pips. And if it swings back the other way, it might take a week to get back down, or maybe a couple days, just depends what the market decides to do. But in that case, I think either way, you get some decent ideas on the short side of Euro USD, in my personal opinion. Going into this week, we'll take a look at pound dollar next. Similar ideas with pound USD, potential pullback plays at the 1.2030 level, which is a bit of a ways away. I understand on the 4-hour chart that is a pretty good pullback, but it's very possible that we get a bit of a rally on the pound USD. If that were to come into play, that 50% level looks very clear for sell side action. I'd like to take a quick look over here at euro dollar and pound dollar on the edge finder, which the euro dollar is getting a strong sell reading. You can see, or sorry, just a sell reading. What we can see is we get a -5. This tool basically is taking into account several different key factors and building a bias. If you're new to trading, all of these things are things that we deem pretty important to market forecasting. So for example, if I'm looking at the fundamentals of the euro against the dollar, I want to pay attention to things, for example, like unemployment, right? Unemployment's a pretty easy one for even new traders to understand. You're comparing the European area versus the US, and you're saying, well, which one has a better unemployment rate? Well, the jobs are healthier in the US. So that might be, oh, I want to bet on the dollar. Or conversely, maybe interest rates are higher in the US. That's more attractive for the currency. Maybe you want to bet on the dollar here, right? So that's how we build a bias. So when you guys see me take setups or ideas on my channel, it's ultimately coming from this software right here. This is where I build most of my bias, and then I actually just execute technicals on the chart. I think if you go the other way, I think if you only look at technicals and you don't look at market data, I think that you're going to miss something. That's just my personal opinion. But I think just purely technical charts alone are very, very difficult to make money consistently from by themselves. It's not that it's impossible, just from my experience and from most traders that I know, they're using data. They're using something to help build their edge. And if that's something that would be helpful to you, then you can check the link down below in the description and get a super discounted promo code to get access to this tool for a subscriber rate. I think, I'm not exactly sure how much it's going to cut off, but it'll cut off a big chunk of the price if you decide to support the channel and use that promo code and the link down below in the description to get the A1 Edge Finder. All right, so I wanted to switch gears. We're also talking about the pound USD. Let's look at the pound. And the pound is getting a strong sell. And as this loads in, just give it a second. But we're seeing the pound get a strong sell rating, and in several categories, this thing is getting beat out. If we specifically look at, for example, again, some of those key factors, we have higher interest rates in the US, that's good. Lower unemployment in the US, that's good. Inflation is less in the US, which is actually good, right? High inflation can be bad for the currency. It's high everywhere, but we want to kind of do the best of the worst in this case, if you will. So you're comparing all these different nodes and getting an output score. That's how we've constructed our software here to help traders find that sort of component in their trading. Now, in terms of the seasonality chart, what we're seeing here is that during the month of August and September, by the way, the pound US dollar has a tendency to decline. Why does that matter? Well, if you know that during a month, the currency pair that you're looking at tends to go up or down, how is that not useful information, right? It's something to consider. And that's exactly why it is involved. Ooh, voice crack. Why it's involved in the scanner output that we're seeing here. So that's the idea behind a strong sell on GBP USD. And so when I go back to the chart, I am more than willing to potentially look for setups. Now that I've got my bias to the downside, I'm looking for that swing back the other direction. That 50% looks good, and I'd be willing to take a small risk on that trade. You can see the full process, hopefully, in my videos, how I set up from the start to the finish, how I'm going to execute a position, how it's going to work out start to finish, etc. Next up, we'll take a look at USD JPY. If we take a look at the dollar yen, this thing exploded last week and really broke through some key levels of resistance. In fact, so much so that I'm willing to buy it on pullbacks. Maybe not so much as some of the other pairs that we just previously mentioned. Those are some of my more favorite ones out there, but this level of resistance could actually turn into support on a pullback. Now, looking at the daily chart, you can see things in a strong upward channel. So I'm willing on a pullback to potentially pick up some long on dollar yen. If that comes into play this week, we'll keep tabs on it, but dollar yen on a pullback to me looks nice. That's a 4-hour chart. So you're talking about a 38.2% retracement, beautiful pullback with the idea of thinking that this thing is potentially headed back to the previous high, right? Just going off of the trend. So a lot of beautiful setups in the dollar pairs, in my opinion, right now. We had a clean move last week, which I'm looking to potentially try and get involved in this week. So just something to consider. Next up, we'll take a look at gold here. So gold declined, and I mentioned to members. So a lot of you guys inside of the VIP group, I know a lot of you guys are watching my videos here. Let me show you something. This is really exciting. This week, be on the lookout, because officially this week, I'm going to be starting to share my longer term position trading in the VIP group. I'm finishing up something that I've been working on, which is just the strategy outline and things like that, and completing a video and things like that. But basically, there was a lot of good positive feedback from the community. So shout out to the VIP team. Thank you for the support, but I'm excited to kind of be releasing that in pieces to you guys as we get started this week. So if you're not already in the VIP group, this is the week to join. We've got a lot of stuff going on and a lot of cool features. Again, there's also a link to the VIP group down below in the description. You can see trades that are being taken by myself, and let's spy on Frank. What is Frank doing? Frank is in a EURUSD sell. This guy caught the move. Okay, so Frank, if you guys aren't familiar, childhood friend of mine and long-term trading friend of mine, and also actually works for me at the company as a analyst and trader inside of the group. He's floating 225 pips on euro dollar. That's incredible. And he just updated this, was this a couple days ago on Friday? I missed his alert. He just updated that he trailed his stop. Beautiful sell on euro USD. So congrats to him. He caught the one that we were talking about earlier, it seems like. So good on him. Again, if you would like to see the trades and join our chat rooms, join our coaching calls, there's a million things. And in my opinion, it beats every other group on the market right now in terms of, if you're a serious trader, come join us. It's really where it's happening. We're talking about all sorts of things, but this week specifically, we will really be opening up our discussion of gold, which I'm very, very excited for. We're going to be talking about gold in more detail as I discuss a little bit of my position building strategy on gold. Little sneak peek. Basically, the idea is I build positions on gold. I don't buy in one go or with a tight stop. It's a different strategy approach than what I usually do, but I have a longer term bullish perspective, and I'm talking longer term, like weekly chart stuff on gold. We had some discounts here last week, and I do think that off the weekly chart, even for the more intraday day trading stuff, we had a huge level, right? We had a huge bounce. I'm still willing personally to make some bets on gold as it pulls back to support. We kind of broke through this level. That wasn't great, but we have some more support that could come into play here this week, just a little bit south of where we currently sit, around 1740, 1742, right? 1742 looks interesting. And we could draw some fibs here from the swing low and start seeing if we have anything. Look at that, the 50% retracement comes into play. So off the daily chart, you can kind of see where I'm going with this, right? You have that pullback to the 50%. We're very close to that level, and that could offer some support for buyers who are looking to trade off of the higher time frames. And again, higher time frame traders, I'm talking about weekly charts, they'll see something like this and they'll be willing to build a position for weeks, if not months, not just a few hours on a trade. So I'm looking for discounts. This week looks like a potentially buying week for me on gold, and I'll be discussing that more with VIP members inside of the group. So again, use that promo code and discount link in the description if you would like to join us inside of the private community. And shout out to you guys there. I'm really, really excited to start talking about that. By the way, just saying, as we get into that, we will be doing plenty of Q&As. If you guys have any questions for me, for those of you in the VIP group who would like to hear more about my strategy in that regards, we will be sending that out to you very, very soon. So stay tuned, and going to be fun. All right, so that's gold. Looking for bullish setups, thinking that we could start to continue to rotate into a bullish market environment. I'd like to look at the edge finder though for gold, because I know that from what I've seen recently, it's not super bullish. So the edge finder, by the way, is a software built more specifically for short-term traders, day traders, and short-term swing traders, right? So gold has actually been really quite bearish in just a purely technical perspective on the lower time frames, right? Here's your 4-hour chart. It's basically saying, hey, we put in a lower high, it sees this sort of stuff, and it's saying in the short term, I think that we are seeing more sell side, which, you know, honestly, for my building a position style, I'm totally cool with. I actually like the idea of potentially picking some stuff up if we can find buyers. If this level doesn't hold, right, I'm willing to potentially look for more buys at lower prices. So I'll be looking out for that. Let's see what else we can find. If I go to the score chart summary for a second, we'll see a list of all of the different assets that we trade. You can see SPX 500, JP225, lots of indices up at the top of the list here today. So if we take just a quick look at something like US30, US30 is incredibly strong. We really saw a rebound here on stocks. So for me, with this little pullback, I'm interested, right? I'm willing to potentially pick up some long ideas on the US30, the Dow, right? The NASDAQ, things like that. So I'm willing to potentially do that, especially if we start poking into some discount levels like the 61.8% retracement might be an idea, and also willing maybe at the 38.2. So I think the risk to reward to buying indices, in my opinion, is quite good. Yes, it could all come crumbling down and you could have a big sell-off again. But again, just speaking purely from the long-term perspective, you might be able to catch a beautiful stock market rebound. And again, it's up in the air on what ultimately decides to do. But I think probability-wise, we have a nice movement to the upside. We have some momentum. And risk-reward-wise, I think there's some excellent opportunities to be buying in this area. That's my opinion. Of course, do what you want to do with your money. But I'm willing to. And I've been buying some stocks as well as the individual indices like the SPY and things like that. So looking out for that. So that's US30. We can move on to NASDAQ 100, which of course looks pretty dang similar, right? So NASDAQ, if you get a bit of more of a pullback, might come into a level like this where things start getting really attractive in my view. You could draw fibs. This is the 4-hour chart, so it's a bit of a higher time frame idea, but start getting to that 38.2, the 50% retracement. If we were to drag this out a little bit, somewhere in this area, maybe you start to get a bit of a haircut where, okay, prices look good and prices continue to rebound and rally off of those areas on the US indices. So I like them a lot. I'll be continuing to watch and play these ones on pullbacks. I've been doing decently well just buying stocks, and you guys have seen, hopefully recently I did a video where I showed all my my portfolio results on my main stocks and gold trading account. And this has been treating me well again, kind of buying dips and working with that. And it's been good. So of course, that's also going to be talked about more inside of the VIP group. So stay tuned on all of that stuff. And thank you guys very much for tuning into today's video. If you enjoyed it, smash the thumbs up button, subscribe, and see you next time.